You've built a life. You show up. You work hard. You do your best. And still deep down, something feels missing. You have moments of success and feel empty, You're surrounded by people and still feel alone. You've done everything right, and yet there's a voice in your head that whispers you're still not enough. What if that voice doesn't belong to you? What if the loudest force in your life is a child? Not a metaphor, not some vague symbol, but the younger you, the one who was never comforted, never believed, never heard, still whispering from the corners of your mind. You might not hear them clearly, but you feel them. When you panic over a delayed reply, when you try to earn love with perfections, when you crumble under the weight of being misunderstood, that's not weakness. That's not irrationality. That's memory. It lives in your body. It speaks through your habits. It hijacks your peace and hides behind your ambition. And it wears a mask. Picture this. You're standing in front of a mirror. The lights are on, sir. You're brushing your teeth. You glance at your reflection, the version of yourself you've built. Polished, grown, adult. But then something shifts. The eyes looking back at you feel older than you are. Heavier. Behind the face there's someone else, a smaller figure. A version of you that never quite made it out of childhood. You lean closer. And there it is. The ache. The shame. The hidden grief you thought time had buried. Carl Jung once said, "In every adult there lurks a child, an eternal child, something that is always becoming." And the truth is, if that child is wounded, confused, or unseen, your adult self will carry that burden for a lifetime. Not because you're weak, but because you were loyal. You carried what no one helped you put down. The most painful part, you may have been doing this for so long that you think it's just who you are. But maybe it's not. Maybe the perfectionism, the self-doubt, the way you shut down when things get hard, that's not personality. That's protection. Maybe you're not flawed. Maybe you're still trying to feel safe. So the real question isn't what's wrong with me. It's which part of me is still waiting to be heard. Because if you've ever felt like you're performing in your own life, like you're wearing a smile that doesn't fit, like you're one small failure away from falling apart, it's not because you're broken. It's because the child inside you is still holding on. Not for answers, not for justice, but for you. And they've waited long enough. Sometimes pain doesn't scream. It whispers. It shows up in the pauses between thoughts, in the tension you carry when no one's watching, in the way you brace for impact when someone says, "We need to talk." You think you're overreacting, that you're sensitive, that you care too much or not enough, or in all the wrong ways. But what if your reactions aren't overreactions? What if they're echoes, not us? What if the fear you feel today has roots in a room from decades ago, where someone raised their voice and you learned silence was safer than speaking? Carl Jung said, "What we do not make conscious appears in our lives as fate." And that fate often looks like familiar pain in new costumes. Different faces, same feeling. Different chapters, same core wound. If you've ever panicked when someone didn't text back, if you find yourself constantly trying to fix people just to feel needed, if you apologize for things that aren't your fault just to keep the peace, if praise makes you uncomfortable but criticism feels like confirmation, if you chase people who pull away and pull away from people who come close, if you feel like joy is dangerous because it never lasts, that's not personality. That's protection. That's a younger you doing the only thing they knew how to do to survive. Because when you were small and the love you needed came with conditions, your nervous system started making rules. Don't be too loud. Don't need too much. Don't make mistakes. You didn't learn those rules consciously. You absorbed them through every moment of being dismissed, ignored, punished for simply being human. And those rules became your blueprint. So now, when you try to speak your truth, your throat tightens. When someone praises you, you prepare for the other shoe to drop. When something feels good, you double-check for danger. Because the child in you doesn't trust safety. They never had enough of it to believe it was real. That the world told you, grow up. But growing up didn't mean healing. It meant building armor. It meant pretending you didn't need what you were starving for. And it meant becoming small enough to be accepted, or big enough to never be hurt again. And the tragedy. You did such a good job surviving. You forgot that surviving is not the same as living. So if you've ever looked at your life and thought, why am I still like this? This is why. Because a part of you is frozen in time. Stuck in the moment they decided it's safer to disappear than to feel. And no one came back to tell them that the danger is gone. But you can. You're not weak for still hurting. You're not broken for still reacting as you. You're not behind for still remembering. So you are human. And somewhere inside you, that younger version of you, the one who was silenced, rejected, made to feel too much or not enough, is still waiting for someone to listen. They don't need you to be perfect. They need you to stop pretending they're not there. Because healing doesn't begin when the pain stops. It begins when you say, I hear you. I believe you. And I'm not going anywhere. And that changes everything. No child looks around their world and thinks this place is broken. They think I must be, because children don't analyze. They absorb. They internalize. They make meaning out of chaos, and more often than not, that meaning sounds like shame. When affection is given and then withdrawn, when love is conditional, when silence answers your tears, your brain doesn't say, they can't meet my emotional needs. It says, I'm too much. I should stop needing. And so you do. But needs don't vanish. They bury themselves. They become the unseen threads that tie your adult life to a childhood you think you've outgrown. Carl Jung didn't speak in therapy jargon. He spoke in symbols, dreams, and shadow. And he understood something most people still miss, that the unresolved past doesn't just sit quietly behind us, it shapes us from within. He wrote, nothing has a stronger influence psychologically on children than the unlived lives of their parents, the pain they hid, the dreams they abandoned, the anger they never dealt with, the numbness they passed off as normal. All of it becomes the air you breathe before you know how to say your own name. It's not always obvious. Sometimes it's a parent who worked all the time, and you mistook absence for unworthiness. Sometimes it's praise only when you performed and you mistook achievement for love. Sometimes it's being the responsible one, the quiet one, the one who didn't make waves, and you mistook invisibility for safety. And slowly a blueprint forms. Don't cry, don't need, don't fail, don't speak. And if you follow those rules long enough, people will call you mature, strong, successful, but inside you know something's off. Because when someone raises their voice, you flinch like you're 5. And when someone gets too close, you sabotage the connection. When you're finally praised, you feel like a fraud. That's not random. That's memory. It's not the situation that triggers you, it's the story that the situation reminds your body of. Your heart is trying to finish a sentence it never got to speak. Jung said, Repression begins in early childhood and continues through life. That repression shows up in more than just silence. It becomes identity. It becomes patterns. It becomes relationships that look different but end the same. It becomes the reason you work harder than everyone else but still feel behind. It becomes the voice that says you should be grateful even when something inside you is aching for more. This is what unhealed childhood pain does. It doesn't just hurt. It writes scripts. And unless we rewrite those scripts, we keep casting people into roles they didn't audition for. We turn friends into fixers. We turn lovers into rescuers. We turn ourselves into caretakers of everyone but us. You think you're choosing them, but you're reenacting something, hoping that if you do it better this time, if you're more agreeable, more forgiving, more perfect, you'll finally get the love you were denied the first time. But the original wound can't be healed by reenactment. It can only be healed by reckoning, and reckoning starts with truth. You are not too needy. You are not too sensitive. You are not ungrateful, broken, dramatic, or cold. You are carrying a nervous system wired for a world that no longer exists. And the child who wired it is still waiting for someone to tell them it's okay to feel. You might think, I already know all this. But knowing is not the same as remembering. And remembering is not the same as healing. Because remembering without compassion becomes shame. But remembering with compassion, that becomes power. So go back, not to relive it, but to reclaim it. Walk into the memories you've locked away. See what you weren't allowed to see back then, that it was never your fault. That you were always worthy. That the love you didn't receive had nothing to do with your value. Your past may explain your pain, but it does not define your future. And the moment you truly see the wound is the moment it starts to lose control over your life. There's a point in every healing journey that feels like a collapse. Not because you're doing it wrong, but because you finally stopped holding everything up. You don't get to that point by thinking your way there. You get there by cracking open. You hear a song and cry without knowing why. You feel anger that doesn't match the moment. You say, I don't know what's wrong with me, but nothing's wrong. Something is surfacing. Carl Jung called it the shadow, the parts of you you've disowned, the feelings you weren't allowed to have, the truth that was too dangerous to speak, and you were told to be good, be easy, be quiet. And in that process, parts of you were sent underground. But what's buried isn't dead. It lives in your reactions, in your defensiveness, in the way your body tenses when someone gets too close, and in the way you criticize yourself before anyone else can. The shadow doesn't mean you're broken. It means you adapted. You split off from parts of yourself to survive in a world that didn't feel safe enough to hold all of you. But here's the thing. Jung understood that most people miss. The shadow isn't evil. It's unacknowledged. And whatever we refuse to acknowledge in ourselves rules us from the dark. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, Jung wrote, but by making the darkness conscious. That's what this chapter is, making the darkness conscious. Not to drown in it, but to walk through it, slowly, intentionally, with the light of your awareness. Close your eyes. Picture yourself walking down a hallway. It's dim, but not frightening. You've been here before in dreams, in memories, in feelings you couldn't quite name. The end of the hall is a door. You've never opened it. Maybe you didn't know it was there. Maybe you always knew but couldn't face what was on the other side. You open it. Inside it's quiet, still. And in the corner of the room, is someone small, a child. They look like you. The version of you who stopped speaking up, who started performing, who learned that being real was dangerous. You walk closer, slowly, and for a moment they don't look at you. They're not sure if you'll stay, but you do. And when their eyes finally meet yours, everything stops, because you see it now. The loneliness, the rage, the ache for someone to say, "I believe you." And in that moment, you don't try to fix them. You just sit. This is not pretend. This is Jung's practice of active imagination, where you don't just analyze your pain, you meet it. You give it form. You give it voice. You let it speak the words that were swallowed. You let it feel the things that were too heavy to carry alone. And maybe that child has something to say. Maybe they're angry you left. Maybe they're afraid to trust you. Maybe they ask, "Are you going to disappear again?" And you say, "No, I'm here now, for real." But that's the beginning of integration. When you stop trying to exile your past and start embracing it. Not to relive the pain, but to bring home the part of you that's been waiting in silence. Wow. You're not healing a concept. You're healing a relationship with yourself. And it won't all be gentle. Sometimes it will feel like rage, the kind of rage that surprises you, the kind you were never allowed to feel. But now it rises like a wave, and instead of drowning in it, you learn to ride it. You let it speak. You let it burn off the layers of self-denial. You realize that underneath the rage is grief, and underneath the grief is love. That's the thing no one tells you. The shadow doesn't just hold pain. It holds power, creativity, there's joy, playfulness. The very essence of your soul that was too raw, too real, too bright to be accepted back then. But now, you're not back then. You can accept it. You can hold it. You can take the broken pieces of your story and do something revolutionary. You can fill them with gold. There's an old Japanese art called kintsugi. When pottery breaks, they don't throw it away. They repair it with gold. The cracks don't disappear. They become the most beautiful part. That's what happens when you confront the shadow and embrace the child. And you don't erase the past. You honor it. You fill it with presence. You turn the wounds into wisdom, the cracks into connection, and the child who once braced for rejection begins to believe maybe they were never unlovable, dears. Maybe they were just unseen, but not anymore. Not now. Because now they have you. When a child is wounded, they don't stop loving the parent. They stop loving themselves. And when that child grows into an adult, the pain doesn't disappear. It just finds new ways to survive. In the apology that escapes your lips before you've done anything wrong. In the panic that rises when someone gets too close. In the voice in your head that says, "I shouldn't feel this way." Healing doesn't happen the moment you understand where the wound came from. It begins the moment you decide to do what no one else could. You become the one who stays. You don't abandon the child inside you again. You meet them with what they've always needed but never received. Patience, safety, nurture, presence. You reparent yourself. That might sound abstract, but it's not. It's specific. It's daily. It's sacred. It begins when you pause instead of pushing through. When you ask yourself, what do I need right now, instead of silencing the discomfort. When you choose to eat, rest, breathe, not because you've earned it, but because you exist. That's what a good parent does. They meet needs before the breakdown, and they don't wait until exhaustion to offer care. And yes, some days it will feel foreign, like you're pretending, like you don't deserve it. That's part of the process. You're not just changing habits, you're rewriting the story of what love looks like. Carl Jung taught that individuation, the path to wholeness, requires integrating what we've disowned. Reclaiming the child isn't just emotional work, it's soul work. It's what takes you from surviving to living. You start listening differently. You hear the moments your body tenses and you ask why. You notice the tears that come out of nowhere and you don't shut them down. You stop calling yourself too sensitive and instead start wondering what that sensitivity is trying to tell you. You don't fix the inner child. You build a relationship with them, and relationships require consistency. So you begin showing up in small ways. Every day, you speak to yourself like someone who deserves to be heard. You honor your boundaries instead of betraying them for approval. You allow joy, not as a reward, but as a right. You play, not to perform, but to reconnect with the spark that still lives beneath the shame. Joy is not a luxury. It's medicine. Maybe it's dancing to the songs you loved when you were 10. Maybe it's drawing without worrying if it's good. Maybe it's going outside and letting the sun touch your face without thinking about your to-do list. Whatever it is, that aliveness isn't silly. It's sacred. Because the child you once were didn't just hold pain. They held wonder. And reclaiming that wonder is part of healing too. There will be moments when you regress, when the old voice comes back and tells you you're failing, when you forget what you've learned. That doesn't mean you're broken. It means you're human. And reparenting means that instead of punishing yourself for slipping, you offer compassion. You say, of course this hurts. Of course this feels familiar, but I'm here now, and I'm not leaving. One powerful practice is writing a letter to your inner child, not from your intellect, from your heart. You write, dear little me, and you let the truth pour out. I'm sorry no one protected you. I'm sorry you had to grow up so fast. I see you. I love you. And I'm going to take care of you now. And if you're willing, you write back. As the child, you let them speak. Maybe for the first time. Maybe they say, where were you? Maybe they cry. Maybe they're silent. Whatever comes is real. You are building trust with. And over time, that trust becomes a foundation, and you start to feel it, not as a thought, but as a shift. You feel safer in your body, more anchored in your voice, and less reactive to old triggers. You stop performing as much. You stop explaining as much. You stop abandoning yourself just to make others comfortable. This is what healing looks like. Not dramatic transformation, not perfection, but quiet changes in how you treat yourself when no one else is watching. You stop waiting to be rescued. You stop hoping someone else will finally love you the right way. Because now, you're learning how to do it yourself. And in that, there's freedom. Not because you no longer need anyone, but because your inner child finally knows someone is listening. Someone is home. And it's you. One day, without planning it, something changes. You're washing dishes, folding laundry, sitting in traffic, and suddenly you realize you're not bracing anymore. Not waiting for something to go wrong, not replaying old conversations in your head, trying to figure out what you could have done better to deserve love. There's quiet. Not because the world got easier, but because you stopped abandoning yourself in it. Carl Jung called this individuation, the return to self. The moment you stop chasing wholeness in the external world and start integrating the parts of you once pushed away. The child who cried too easily, and the teen who loved too hard, so the adult who kept showing up even when no one noticed. This is not becoming someone new. It's becoming someone true. It's remembering that your worth was never meant to be earned. It was inherent. It was there before the pain, before the masks, before the silence. And it's still there now. Wholeness isn't perfection. It's inclusion. It's knowing that the cracks are still there, but they no longer define you. It's being able to say, I was hurt, and also say, I am healing. It's letting your past inform you, but not imprison you. You might still get triggered. That's okay. You might still hear the old voice sometimes. That's okay too. Because now you know who's speaking, and you know how to answer. You speak back not with judgment, but with love. I see you. I know why you're scared, but I've got you now. This is what the child inside you needed to hear all along. And maybe you'll never get an apology from the ones who caused the wound. Maybe closure will never come the way you imagined, but something better happens. You become the closure. You become the one who breaks the cycle, who doesn't pass the pain forward, who doesn't wait for the world to heal you because you've started healing yourself. And in doing so, you don't just change your life, you change your lineage. The children you raise, the friends you love, the strangers you meet, they'll feel something different in you. Something steady, something soft, something real. Because when you heal the inner child, you don't just find peace, you become it. So let's end where we began. That mirror, that moment, that reflection that used to scare you. Look again. This time don't rush past it. Don't look away. Look closer. Behind the eyes, behind the weariness, behind the adult face you've learned to wear so well, there's still a child in there. But they're not afraid anymore. They're not hiding. They're smiling. Because you came back for them. Because you stayed. And if something in this journey stirred something in you, don't let it end here. Say the words your inner child has been waiting for, out loud, or in the comments below. Someone else's child may need to hear them too. Let this be more than a moment. Let it be a beginning. Welcome home, darling.